Witness still on the stand, the judge refusing.
Based on testimony of adult film actress Stormy Daniels, the former president's defense attorney Todd Blanche called for a mistrial, saying Daniels' testimony was more about a consensual relationship than the crime his client is accused of committing. Blanche called the narrative prejudicial. Prosecutor Susan Hoffinger said the defense was briefed on what Daniels would say, and it was meant to show the defendant's intent with this witness. Judge Juan Merchan said while some details were not necessary, it was hard to control the testimony given. He ultimately denied the motion, saying it's not warranted right now.
Fox's Gernal Scott, the former president's charged with falsifying business records to hide hush money payments, a case he calls a witch hunt and election interference. The White House not commenting directly on reports there's a hold on weapons shipments to Israel as Israeli forces go after Hamas targets in Rafah.
We have been very clear from here about our concerns about major operations. We have been very clear from here about protecting civilians.
But spokeswoman Karine Jean-Pierre also says the U.S. commitment to Israel's security is ironclad. Israeli officials have described the current operation in Rafah as limited. President Biden urging unity against anti-Semitism and all forms of hate as protests continue on college campuses.
Violent attacks, destroying property, is not peaceful protest. It's against the law. And we are not a lawless country.
At a Holocaust remembrance event, the president saying no one should have to hide or be brave just to be themselves. He just had a White House meeting with Romania's president, who says he's willing to discuss sending a Patriot missile defense system to Ukraine. The Dow up 31 at the bell. America's listening to Fox News.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
The House Speaker meets again with fellow Republicans calling for his ouster.
Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia and Thomas Massie of Kentucky have still not triggered a vote on a motion to vacate House Speaker Mike Johnson after nearly 4 hours worth of closed-door meetings over the last 2 days. The Republican lawmakers are requesting Speaker Johnson only put bills on the floor that have a majority of Republican support, stop funding Ukraine, and defund special counsel offices for the Department of Justice.
We're interested to see his actions, not his words.
Speaker Johnson has said he understands their frustration, but says conservative wins are hard to come by with a Senate and White House controlled by Democrats. On Capitol Hill, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
Emergency orders in Michigan to help manage a bird flu outbreak.
Michigan Department of Agriculture Director Tim Boring says it's not a health problem impacting people at this point, though that an emergency order will go into effect Wednesday in an effort to limit the bird flu that spread to dairy cows.
We've called on poultry and dairy facilities across the state to be implementing some essential biosecurity practices, further cleaning and disinfecting, tracking who goes on facilities.
The state also halting poultry exhibitions at fairs this summer until it sees negative tests for bird flu in Michigan for 30 days and placing restrictions on bringing lactating dairy cattle to fairs. The impact to Michigan farmers is still unknown.
Fox's Jeff Manasso. The U.S. Agriculture Department recently ramping up bird flu testing of dairy cattle crossing state lines. Apple unveiling its next generation iPads, including new sizes and faster processors, after disclosing its steepest quarterly decline in iPhone sales since the pandemic began. Apple shares slightly higher on a mixed day for stocks overall. The Dow finishing up 32, the NASDAQ down 16. Elisa Brady, Fox News.
Well, again, everyone, let's check weather-free Central Illinois. Champaign and Van Avis Saturday, somewhat busy days worth of weather, chasing some heavier thunderstorm activity over parts of the area. Seeing that make its move across the area this morning and back in this afternoon. A couple of more disturbances are originating over the plains, make its way across our part of the Corn Belt, bringing down some cooler air. But a significant pattern shift is ahead for the end part of the week, more so to the weekend, and even more so next week, and milder to warmer and drier. We'll be able to get out there in the backyard of the back 40. But today, showers and thunderstorms this morning and back in this afternoon, scattered in coverage. Maybe a heavy to locally severe thunderstorm. The high nearing 80, south-southwesterly wind. Lingering shower chance this evening. Overnight clearing, low down at 58. For the day tomorrow, partly sunny, warmer shower thunderstorm in spots late morning and again in the afternoon. Highs up to 81. Couple more showers on Thursday, cool at 68. Friday high 66. We do carry a chance for shower thunderstorm on Saturday. Dry Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, with temperatures next week back in the 70s. For Steve J. Broadcasting, I'm Peter Olchis, Greg Solgay.
You have me for the rest of the week, he said. Promises that some guys can't keep. Never trust commitments until they're signed, sealed, and delivered. Lante, not here today. He is decommitted from today's show.
It's like, have you seen, there's been like a handful of guys this offseason that have posted like the I'm back graphic.
Yeah.
And then like a week later, they're in the portal. That's basically what happened here yesterday.
Should we just Crean him? Are you familiar with that term?
I don't know if I am, but
Tom
I can
Crean
infer about what it means.
Used to at Indiana, had to churn over a pretty terrible roster, especially early on, and it became a term to Crean a player, pretty much told a player to get lost. Not that I don't know, are we telling him to get lost? Where it's the coach's decision to make that player transfer, not the player's decision. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Although
we can't really do that because I'm going to be gone the next few days, so he actually has to show up.
I'll take it back. You know he's listening here somewhere, so I'm sure we'll get a text here shortly. I'm not trying to push Lon out the door. Of course, it's all a joke. He's got senior night tonight for the STM baseball program. He's helping out.
He's putting that voice of his to work somewhere.
Yeah,
just not
of course.
These airwaves.
No doubt. And we always just like to bust his chops because what fun is it if we don't do that? So we might as well. As for today's show, you got Kyle and I, and no new news because we had that to talk about yesterday as far as Illini basketball with Tomislav Ivisic joining on board, the Croatian big man. I am pleased to share that Brad Underwood spoke to the media today for a solid 25 minutes discussing both Ivisic and Ben Humrickhouse, the newest additions to that Illini front court. So he'll break it all down as far as their games, a lot of question and answer with the reporters. I asked him about Kylan Boswell, just kind of what his vibe is on Kylan now that he's gotten to talk more with him since he made that decision, and just a number of different angles to hit on. I guess one thing that we should probably discuss, Kyle, off the top, there's been a report by John Rothstein today that Illinois, who has been aggressive under Brad Underwood in scheduling in the non-conference, and I think that we will see them in a Thanksgiving week type tourney this year, based on what I had heard. I think it will be the Emerald Coast Classic. I don't know what that field looks like as of now, and that was the last I had heard back during the season, because last season you did not have that. They played a couple of games around. They played pretty much their first full month all the way through November at home before, of course, ramping up and going and playing the Jimmy V Classic and playing at Tennessee and playing an early road Big Ten game as well.
Where does the Emerald Coast Classic take place?
I think is it in Destin, Florida?
That's boring. I was hoping you'd say like the Caribbean or something.
I'm waiting for the Battle for Atlantis invite. Isn't that in the Bahamas?
Yeah.
We need to get to because they play that in like a hotel ballroom or something, and it's always got the dim lights, and that's usually a pretty fun field. And of course, you've got the high-rise hotel, like 2 towers up there with a million pools and their bayside and all that. That looks awesome. Now, it would be, you'd be jealous as somebody that's there to work it, that you maybe don't get to play as much as you'd want to on the other side of it. But I want to go there. I haven't gone to Maui personally. Jeremy Warner went to that the last time that Illinois was in it, in Brad Underwood's second season, right? That was the second season that they were in it, because
Yes.
Io was a freshman. Yeah, Io was a freshman. Trent was a sophomore.
Electric first game against Gonzaga.
Trent went nuts in that game. Unfortunately, Illinois went 0-3. They lost to Gonzaga, they lost to Xavier, and they lost to Iowa State. Taylor Horton Tucker and company had a good game. That was a really talented Iowa State team. Did they have Tyrese Halliburton on that team as well?
They might have.
I'd have to
Let's
effort
check
that.
What? So that would have been 2018?
I think that's right. Let's see here. We've got some time to kill if you don't know as far as where. So that was 2018, 2019 season. So it was in November of 2018. Yes, they had both Tyrese Halliburton as a freshman and Taylor Horton Tucker as a freshman on that team.
Wow.
Pretty talented. Illinois lost 84-68.
Wow, I didn't even realize with the whole Taylor Horton Tucker Io dynamic, and then they played each other the first month of their college careers.
26 points.
Was there any build up to that?
Yeah.
I would imagine there was.
Absolutely. And Taylor, who was in line with, I think usually when we consider players playing against Illinois that are from the state, that with Taylor, it was Illinois spurning him versus like E.J. Liddell spurning the Illini. And, of course, E.J. then made it hurt for a handful of years. Now, Illinois beat him down the stretch of that battle between the two. The final stint of his career where the Illini were able to get him in Columbus in the regular season finale and then beat him in the Big Ten tournament championship.
I can tell that Taylor Horton Tucker wanted to beat Illinois.
Did you see that stat line?
26 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists.
And 3 blocks.
3 blocks. Hey, Tyrese Halliburton, 0 points, but unfortunately Iowa State still won by 16.
They won by 16. Yeah, Io didn't have a very good Maui. I know definitely in that Gonzaga game, I don't think he was all too stellar. 6 points, 2 for 7 from the field. He had 13 points against Iowa State. Did have 19 against Xavier, and they lost that one as well. But yeah, I mean, Taylor to have 26, 14, 6, and 3 blocks, man, that's wild. That's absolutely wild.
I have no recollection of that, but I feel like there had to be some interesting dynamic going on after that game.
I would think. I mean, there was, in my recollection.
Now, Iowa went on to have a much more impactful college career than Horton Tucker did. Horton Tucker is also in the NBA, I think, although has he really played much? Is he a G League guy now? I know he was with the Lakers a little bit. Then he got traded to Utah, right?
That's right. I know he was playing for Utah a decent amount last year, even made some starts down the stretch of last season. Let's see, this year he played 51 games for the Jazz, 11 starts, 20 minutes a game.
Okay.
Last year, 65 games with Utah, 20 starts. But yeah, he came on for the Lakers there in that 2021-22 season, played 25 minutes a game, started about a third of them, and I'm sure he's made good money, and he's still fairly young when you probably consider how long he's been in the league. Let's see, he got drafted in 2019, and he's still only 23 years old. Isn't that crazy?
So he was a one and done at Iowa State?
He was a one and done.
Wow, okay.
One and done, left for, I'm sure, different era. If you're talking NIL and that whole type of thing, it's probably
put that Illinois Maui game film on, and you're probably a first-round pick. My gosh.
I mean, he was super skilled. I was a huge fan of his. It was unfortunate those two, Io and Taylor, couldn't play together, especially if it would have extended out. If Taylor would have stayed at Illinois multiple years, you would have had Trent, you would have had Io, you would have had Taylor, and that would have been a lot of fun to watch. But, of course, if Iowa State only gets 1 year out of Taylor, which they did, and Illinois got 3 out of Io, I mean, it's not even close in terms of the impact. But Taylor was a really good player in his own right, and that was definitely highly talked about at the time of the recruitments when Illinois then said no to Talon, and he pivots and goes to Iowa State. Then you have that game right afterwards. But Wes asked on the U of I Line League text line regarding Maui, are we up for Maui in 2025? That's a good question. I know there's a window that you have to – is it every 4 years or every 5 years that you're allowed to go back? I'm not sure. Not that you're guaranteed to go back every 4 or 5 years, but
if I can find that out.
That is something that
will have been 7 by next season.
Good call. Yeah, you're right. So I'm not exactly sure on that, Wes. We'll try to effort that. But I'm burying the lead a little bit. I did want to admittedly was going in a direction where I was going to pivot away from Illinois basketball. But, yeah, John Rothstein today has reported that Illinois and Duke are working on a matchup at Madison Square Garden for this upcoming season. And while that probably means Illinois is not in the Jimmy V Classic, which I'm sure the Jimmy V it would be fine with getting a different team in there just to freshen some things up. Not that Illinois hasn't been a great participant for them because they've drawn good crowds. They've been in very entertaining and close games. Like the Texas game obviously goes to overtime, and that was a thriller and a battle of ranked teams, I believe, at the time. Illinois would have had to have been ranked as well, right? Maybe they weren't. Texas was top 10 in the country. Was Illinois ranked when they beat them?
I think they may have been because at that point they had beaten UCLA already.
Oh, you're right. Yeah,
they
would have
undefeated.
Been they would have been ranked.
And they might have been ranked preseason with that team. I can't remember. Maybe they were just outside. But that UCLA one had to have gotten them ranked.
I think they've been preseason ranked 4 years in a row, I believe. If I'm, I need to have this certain, but yeah, they were for the Texas game. Just to set the story straight here. Let's see, that would have been. Why does ESPN not have this? They don't have the rankings for either of these teams. Neither here nor there, but I do believe that both squads were ranked. And then obviously last year, a very high-scoring and good battle between Illinois and FAU. And again, I think the fan turnout probably matters to the Jimmy V as much as anything, especially you're talking about a neutral site game on a weeknight. So you got to have a fan base that is going to be showing out for that one. It's not the easiest game probably to draw for all the time. Texas was number 2 in the country for that game, but for whatever reason, whether going to fightingillini.com or ESPN, it's not telling me what Illinois' ranking was for that clash. I can get that to you here as we go. Thank you to a 508. The Illini were 17. So, yes, a ranked battle, 17 against number 2. That's always one that you can sell in the promos, of course. And Duke and Iowa were playing the follow-up game then, and then you had Illinois FAU this past year with UConn and UNC as the nightcap, and that was a high-profile matchup, and I was just thankful that I got a chance to see UConn up close twice this past season. So, but to go back to the news, Illinois and Duke, I've immediately pivoted and said, the first thing that popped in my head was, hey, Cooper Flagg's going to be playing for Duke.
Mm-hmm.
And he is I know he hasn't played a game in college yet, but I got a chance to see him in the EYBL last summer, and he is a special talent. Like there are, of course, we've talked about like in this draft class,
there's going to be a tank off next year for him in the NBA draft.
Yeah, I mean he's one of those like high profile handful of guys like that in a 10-year window, maybe even longer than that. He's a big deal, and for Illinois to draw him, and I'd have to look to see who else Duke has coming in, but that's a big-time, high-profile matchup on Illinois' schedule, assuming that gets locked in. Wouldn't imagine Rothstein be tweeting about it and reporting it if it wasn't in line. And Brad even mentioned today that they were close to closing the deal on a high-profile game. So that seems to be the one. And what do you think about that one, Kyle? That's one that we always kind of wanted in the ACC Big Ten Challenge when it was still a thing. Like, I hope Illinois is good enough to get Duke, which they did in the COVID year, which kind of was cool because Illinois beat a high-profile team, a team that was ranked highly at the time and then tanked and didn't even make the tournament. But you didn't get the fan involvement in that one, didn't actually get to experience Cameron Indoor. But now it looks like on a grand stage, imagine that's ESPN or some national.
Oh, I'm sure it's
Fox.
Duke with Cooper Flag. They're going to have 800 ESPN games.
It'll be insane. So what do you think?
Oh, I'm fired up for it. I love these non-conference games against big-time programs. Bring them all on. I love scheduling hard. I hate playing a schedule where 12 of your 13 non-conference games are gimme wins. That doesn't do anything for your team, especially a new team that's trying to get better together, build some chemistry, and also just the importance of getting these opportunities in the non-conference to build a resume. If you beat Duke, next year's Duke team, now it's going to be tough to do. Duke's probably going to be a sizable favorite in that game, depending on how the first month of the season goes or whatever. But if you beat Duke, that win will carry unbelievable weight come March. And it just to get those opportunities, we've seen how important they've been to Illinois' resume the last couple of seasons. And just for viewing purposes, like, watching Cooper Flag play against my favorite team is pretty cool. Like, I think he's going to be a perennial NBA All-Star someday. So just to get that opportunity and to play Duke on that type of national stage, bring all those types of matchups to me. I love them. I know Brad Underwood doesn't back down from scheduling non-conference games, and as a fan, I love it because it's much better than the alternative to me, even if some of these games, namely Duke, is going to be probably tough to win.
Cooper Flag, the number one prospect in the country in the 2024
five
class.
stars coming in for Duke. I mean, come on. Could we leave a couple for some other programs?
5? My gosh.
4 24/7 5-stars, and then another composite 5-star who's the last 4-star on 24/7.
Okay, there you have it. Yeah, Cooper Flag, where you look at the rankings and not just the star rating, but just the overall grade out of 100 that 24/7 slaps on there, and 100s are not generously given out. Like, the number one player in a given class isn't always a 100. Cooper Flag is a 100.
Who's guarding him on this team? Morez Johnson, welcome to college.
That's probably a better one than Benham Rickhouse. No slight to him, even though you look at 6'9", but the mobility type of thing that he has. Kerry Booth, we'll see how much progress he can make here in a year, and like, Cooper's not going to be overwhelmingly strong, but he is just so athletic and long and just rangy. He's all over the court. He can literally, like you said, he can literally do everything. He'll dunk on you. He can shoot it. He can rebound. He can pass. He can just do everything. So that's certainly one that you definitely want to see. You combine that with what I assume to be probably, if it is the Emerald Coast Classic or if it turns out to be a different one, although, again, that's the one I had heard, that you're going to have a couple more high major type of games on your slate for the non-conference. And I'm always going to assume that with Brad Underwood, that they're going to be looking for opportunities to get quad one games on their schedule. And I'd hope to see another home and home soon. Now that, although you're going to have Tennessee, why am I forgetting that? You're going to have Tennessee next year at home, and then after that, I would like to see another home and home get slotted. We've all been banging the table for Kansas for however long, but Duke is one that'll satisfy and get people going. And maybe if I was on the Illinois side, not to say that Madison Square Garden is a home game for Duke, even though they'll draw a lot better there than Illinois will. It'd be cool if Illinois could get make it a return to the United Center or something like that. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm all for, even though I agree, and I'm curious, you're a Chicago guy, Kyle, you're from that area, and I know, like you said, when teams would go play, if Illinois is going to play at Wisconsin or they're going to play at Northwestern, I think Northwestern for sure for you, and of course the UC, when it was an annual game, a lot of people up there loved the ability to get there and have it right in their backyard. And I do think when Illinois as a program has the right buzz and attraction and you get the right opponent, that can be a really good game. I understand why Brad would rather have it on the home floor, because you get the true advantage of the Orange Crush and a sold-out 16,000 in Champaign, and maybe it's going to a cool venue in return, like going to Knoxville or going to Tucson, Arizona like they did recently, or whatever that would look like. But I do think it'd be cool if they could kind of, and I don't think you can soft launch it. Don't like, oh, well, here's Illinois, and I know New Mexico State was a team, one of their last games there. Don't do that. Don't do a Big Ten game there.
I remember I was with my dad, their game against Ohio State, Underwood's second year. Illinois lost. They couldn't make a layup to save their life, and there was like 500 fans there.
Yeah. I think that game could work, though. And for years, people have asked.
And again, that was after a long period of Illinois being bad and missing the turn. Like, this Illinois program is probably going to draw a lot more than it did. When that United Center series that they did was basically throughout the Gross years and the early Underwood years. Now, I know they played a bunch of games there, too, when Weber was here. But
yes.
The end of the United Center was aligning with Illinois really not being very good. I wonder how much different it would be now that there's so much momentum within the program, and you know that you're going to see a really good team.
No, I agree. And now, don't get me wrong. Like, if you want to, we always play this game of who would be the next home and home, maybe outside of Kansas because that's the obvious one. Would a home and home at State Farm Center and then Fog Allen would be fantastic and would be the shoot for the moon type of home and home series. But whether it's going to be, I think Arkansas would be fun, especially now you got Calipari and O with the familiarity there. And again, Fayetteville and Champaign, I'm all for it. But I think that I always thought of Florida as another one. And maybe that's not as sexy of a matchup as it maybe would have been a handful of years ago, although Florida's at worst a decent to good program. And you kind of have that Orlando to them would be like Chicago to Illinois type of like NBA arena, semi-neutral, but obviously one side is getting majorly benefited from that. But I just feel like if you can play in Madison Square Garden, which I know it's an epic stage and it's different than playing at the UC. Not to knock that, but maybe Duke is more agreeable to Madison Square Garden versus like, hey, let's literally play the game in our backyard where all our fans are. But I do think that maybe we can get there to play in a game back there soon because I would like to see it. I know that for years fans have asked me about it, and really when I talk to people around the program, it has not been on their radar. It hasn't really been something they've been interested in doing. But now that you have the consistency, the appeal, and I expect every year Illinois to have excitement around them, that I think it's if there was a time to launch it back up, I'd say now or in the near future would be to do it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a strong opinion on it. My experience growing up of the United Center games was bad opponents, bad turnouts.
Yeah,
and I know there's been times where that hasn't been the case, and I think it probably would change now. But I mean, what is really the advantage to doing that for Illinois as opposed to a home and home series?
I think it's fine to. I think when you square it up and say home and home or neutral, you're going to choose home and home every time. Maybe there would be an opponent that would be more apt to want to do that because I think part of the Kentucky-Gonzaga series that they signed, now some of them are going to be, they've played at Rupp this past year. I think they're going to play at the Kennel maybe next year. But then I think a couple of those.
There's a lot of these series that are happening, though, where like Houston will play someone and they'll play at the Toyota Center instead of on campus.
Yeah.
Or Gonzaga will play someone and they'll play at the arena in Seattle as opposed to Gonzaga's campus.
Right.
I just question how beneficial that really is. Wouldn't you rather do it on campus for some of these games?
I think that's fair. Maybe just, I don't know.
So you're just not going to get the same, like, yeah, you're going to branch out to, make yourself more accessible to a certain part of your fan base, I guess, but it just you don't get the environment, the intimacy of the college campus games. And if it's not like a special event like the Jimmy V Classic or like the Champions Classic, I just don't know. Just scheduling a random regular season game not on campus feels like I can understand Illinois' point of view. Like, yeah, we're not interested in that. We'd rather play here. And if we have to go somewhere else to get them to come back here, then we'll do that too.
No, I get where you're going with that. I certainly agree with you. in terms of the preference. Like the thought of a big time opponent coming to Champaign and seeing a crush line that's 2 miles long, and just knowing that it's going to be, again, 16,000 strong. I vividly remember, and will always remember, I know a lot of people around here certainly do, the Wake Forest game where Wake Forest was number 1 in the country, and they come in, and just what that was like. I mean, that's one that,
like Marquette this past year was pretty great, even though Illinois didn't win.
Yeah, the Arizona game here in Champaign was a big time battle, and that was a highly talented Arizona team with Benedict Mathurin. And
Tennessee this year should be rocking.
It's true. Tennessee should be pretty darn good. So I do agree that that's probably the preference, and I can't give you a great answer on why, if you could do either, why you would do the neutral and why you would go to the NBA arena, even though I think that the NBA arena could prevent something different in terms of a look. I'll bring up Bill from Troy's text. I think this is a good point on the U of I Line and Link text line. He said the UC game should be over Christmas break. That would be one thing that I could point to and say, if the Orange Crush isn't going to be there, because that
they were in the past, right? Mostly they were.
I think
they'd
right,
happen like December 28th or something, kind of that
and
Christmas, New Year's week type of thing.
You've got to be delicate with the bragging rights game, and because that's always like right up on the right before Christmas, like the December 22nd, 21st through the 23rd, essentially anywhere in that window. So would you want to play bragging rights and then have Christmas break and then turn around and play a UC game? Probably not. But I do think that the idea of playing it when a lot of students are back in the Chicago area, and if you played a game in Champaign, because there have been Big Ten games, early Big Ten games, maybe early January, or if you catch one on that December flip where you get one at home and the students are already gone. No offense to the people who sit in the Orange Crush seats, it's just different. It's just different. So maybe that's an argument for it. Bill also says, how about Arizona? You play them in Phoenix or LA and then have Arizona come and play in Chicago. That has obviously been done before with Arizona. Gonzaga was probably the one that's been, at least in the recent memory, the most prevalent opponent that's come to the UC. I think Arizona's done it before. There was, I think, although it was part of the ACC Big Ten, Duke at the UC, and then they went and played in Greensboro as a get-back game for them. But anyways, not to wax poetic on the UC game, but Duke and Illinois at MSG. So sounds like it's happening, and I can't wait for it.
I'm excited for it, too. This non-conference schedule, you're going to have the Emerald Coast Classic. I think you'll play. I was trying to look this up. So prior to last year, it was just 4 high major teams over 2 days in the Emerald Coast Classic.
Yep.
And then last year, they expanded it to 8 teams, and they mixed in some high majors, some mid-majors. So the field last year was Alabama, Oregon, Ohio State, Santa Clara, Mercer, Tennessee State, Southeastern Louisiana, and Western Michigan. So you had 3 pretty good high major programs. You get a game you should win to start, and then so you're probably getting 2 high major games in that event if they follow the same format as last year.
And did they play those teams in Destin or at the site? Because sometimes they do have like teams that are involved, but you play them on your.
I believe the first round was on campuses.
Yeah, okay.
And then the 4 that won then went to Destin to play 2 games over 2 days.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. That would be an opportunity to, maybe get an SEC school down there or someone from the ACC.
Yep.
And I'd look forward to that, along with Tennessee, who I'm pulling up Bart Torvik here, which I think we teased it a little bit yesterday. Bart Torvik currently, now it's a non-bias, like it's
all analytically based projections.
So we can't say, this Torvik guy.
That's what Lon would say. Lon would be trashing Bart's name.
Come on, Bart. Did you not watch the Illini last year? I guess that wouldn't do you any good because there's no one back from that team. But
that is what I see it all the time. People complaining, like when Ken Pom gets brought up, they're like, God, Ken Pom doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm like, he's not formulating any opinions here. It's all numbers.
Your biased algorithms and stuff. Duke right now, according to Torvik, projected as the 5th best team in the country going into next year. You've got Tennessee projected as the 9th best team in the country going into next year. I was curious, and I mentioned who's coming back for Duke. They obviously lose Kyle Filipowski. They are bringing back a pair of guards in Tyrese Proctor and Jared McCain.
They're not
Caleb
bringing
Foster,
back McCain. McCain's going to the draft.
Okay, then their analytics are messed up then. They've got Flagg, McCain, Proctor, Caleb Foster all on here. Maybe they, as he's still left things open, they're including him in this. But
yeah, I guess that maybe they don't. Is Coleman Hawkins included for Illinois?
Yeah, good question. McCain's a projected lotto
yeah,
pick,
he's
right?
leaving. He already announced.
I can't believe I even mentioned that.
If they had brought him back, boy, they'd be number one.
I'm reading whatever is on the teleprompter here. Mason Gillis will be a Dookie.
6'3s at MSG for sure.
He says hopefully Coleman isn't playing for Duke.
Do they even need him? I mean, look at their recruiting class.
Yeah, sure enough.
Doesn't he kind of play Cooper Flagg's position?
Yeah, that's a good point. We had another text regarding Coleman Hawkins that we'll get to after the break. If you want to weigh in, you can. 217-359-2255 on the U of I Atlanta Link text line. You'll hear from Brad Underwood later in the show. He spoke to the media today about Ben Humrickhouse and Tomislav Ivisic, the newest additions for the Illini. So we got a lot of talk regarding Illini basketball. We'll hit on some Cubs as well. Kyle is still thrilled with this bullpen effort that they continue to put out there. So I got some things to cheer him up, though. I was doing a little bit of research before coming into the show.
Again, I've said it before, like I feel good about where the Cubs are at and where they'll be when they get healthy, but it's just to have a bullpen this awful holding a team that I think could be really good back every single night. I mean, it's every night the starter dominates through. I mean, Steele was on a pitch count last night, so he only went 4 2/3, but recently it's been 6 dominant innings from the starter, and then as soon as the bullpen enters the game, all hell breaks loose and balls are getting hit 108 and runs are crossing. You need to have like a 5-run lead heading into the 7th with this pen right now. It's really bad.
Cubbies fans out there, hit us up on the text line. Let us know, and we'll continue to talk Illinois basketball, get to some of your texts that we haven't already. Stick with us for that. This is The Drive.
Hi, it's Wes from Lands Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Our mission at Lands is to provide top-tier service, prioritize our customers with upfront pricing, and maintain exceptional communication. We assure you at Lands we will only recommend what you truly need, from regular maintenance on your home's mechanical systems with the Lands Comfort family to replacement of existing equipment. Right now, Lands is offering up to $1,500 off qualifying Trane heating and cooling systems, and combining it with utility companies' rebates and potential tax credits, now would be a great time to consider updating your HVAC system. Visit us at landsinc.com.
If you're in the market for a new car battery, you could go to one of those big box stores, except there's no guarantee you'll be served by an actual car expert.
Clean up in aisle 3.
You could pick a battery off the shelf, except it might be close to expiring. Or you could just come into Interstate. Don't make a big box store blunder. With competitive prices and a more personal, reliable approach, Interstate Batteries is the clear-cut choice if you want to guarantee yourself a new and trustworthy car battery. They're open and ready to serve you at 2504 North Mattis Avenue in Champaign.
This is XYZ Insurance. How can I help?
I have a question about my home policy.
Okay, question about phone policy.
Home policy.
Okay, gnome policy.
HOME, home.
Technology is great, but sometimes it's better to talk with a real person. With Erie Insurance, you have a caring, independent agent who's with you from beginning to end.
We don't have any HOMEs on record.
Your Erie agent in Champaign is Thomas & Ellers Insurance. Go to erieinsurance.com for company licensure and product details.
Have you ever looked at a junk truck and said, man, that truck is pretty? 2 men in a junk truck. Trucks are pretty. They're pretty big, so they can handle large jobs. They're pretty reliable. 2 Men in a Truck has been recognized as a trusted leader in the moving industry for over 35 years. Now we are proud to offer that same reliability to junk removal, and they're pretty fast. When you're ready to let some things go and that you don't need, you don't want to wait 3 weeks. You want it gone now. Go to 2meninajuncktruck.com and make room for what matters most.
By now, you've all heard the expression, when you turn the key and the car won't run, call 367-9481 for PDR Automotive. They are what's best for your truck or car. They are PDR. But who are they? They, the PDR staff, understand that a name is only as good as the people that represent it. The PDR staff has more than 335 years of combined automotive experience, several employees now on staff for more than 25 years. PDR, more than just a name. Family owned and operated, now celebrating over 50 years in business. Every month we celebrate law enforcement at Stevie J Broadcasting. Officer Sarah Lynx is our law enforcement official of the month from the Urbana Police Department. They say you're a star. Congratulations.
Ooh. Oh, thank you. I don't know about being a star, but I appreciate that.
Well, you've done this work for a number of years in your patrol.
I have. I've been with Urbana for 18. I've been doing this a total of 22 years.
What drew you to law enforcement?
Right. I always joke and tell people I never wanted to pick out my outfit every day, but actually, I just wanted to help people, and I like to problem solve, and I get a different problem every day to solve.
It's never the same.
It is never the same.
Keep up your great work. We certainly appreciate the vast majority appreciate what police do.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for your support, because we do greatly appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you. Thank you. Officer Sarah Lynx, our law enforcement official of the month, brought to you by MX Electric.
Relax. Call back 217-359-7293.
The world's largest sports book right at your fingertips. The Circus Sports Illinois app is ready for action. Now you can download, fund, and bet like a pro from anywhere in Illinois. Circusports.com. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
In an ever-changing real estate market, it is so important to work with experienced agents like Russ and Nick Taylor with the Taylor teams at Taylor Realty Associates. They have the knowledge and expertise to get your home sold for the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time. Trust the experience and success of Russ and Nick Taylor with the Taylor team at Taylor Realty Associates. Give them a call today at 217-355-0700 or visit them online at taylorboys.com. That's taylorboys.com.
Hi, I'm Tyler Weaver, president of Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery. It's time to come home to Carpet Weavers. We don't want you to just like your new floors. We want you to love them. From waterproof floors and carpet to furnitures and design advice, we've got a team of experts on your side. We'll get you the best price and the best quality products. And complete your home with furniture and accessories. Buy it all with free financing too. Come home to Carpet Weavers, where floors, furniture, and family meet.
Back on the drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. We'll get to a couple of your texts on the U of I Illini Lake text line. We had both Kyler and George weigh in regarding Maui, and they do make good points and something that is relevant. Be interesting to throw this back and forth, Kyle, a little bit. But Kyler says, doesn't Brad not like playing in Maui with conference games starting in December now? George says, I've been to Maui in 2012 when they won it, 2018 when it was a train wreck. Maui is the absolute best experience watching college basketball ever. My understanding is that BU and the staff don't like the travel, the turnaround for the Maui experience versus spreading solid games throughout the early non-conference schedule. Those are both fair points and definitely something that he's talked about. I know that whether it's on the record, which I don't think he's been shy about, but also kind of what I've heard as well is that in his experience and some other teams that he's talked to or just monitored, that there is usually a Maui hangover afterwards. Usually he said that I think his Oklahoma State team went there and felt like his team for a week after was just jet lagged, tired, whatever, just wasn't able to come back and get acclimated as fast as you want. So I don't know that they would turn down Maui too many times. Like, I think that if they got a chance to go back over there, this is my just personal guess on it without any inside knowledge, I think that they would probably do it again. I don't know that Brad is so adamant about it that he won't do it again, but maybe it is a situation where there are alternatives that you can not fully make up, because I think especially when you get an exceptionally strong Maui field, it's probably hard to compete with the opportunities there and the exposure and all that you get. That's the grandest of stages around Feast Week there in Thanksgiving. So I don't know. Maybe he would be to the point where he's like, I don't know if I want that from my team. And it is a good point on Kyler's end that now having the Big Ten, as we've had really in the last 5 years, I say now, but really like I think the last 5 years or whatever it is, where you got those 2 December Big Ten games and you already have the bragging rights baked in and you already have Brad working on home and homes with Tennessee that we're seeing here in the last 2 years, and now a chance to make, just go out of your own way and outside of the construct of the MTEs that are already in place and that the TV networks are really efforting, that maybe you can just say, hey, we want to play Duke and we'll take the site and we're going to get it done. So there are ways to get marquee opponents on the schedule, and maybe it's not Maui. What do you think about that, Kyle, regarding the want to play in Maui versus maybe the downside of it?
Trying to look at this year's Maui field and how they did after the tournaments. Purdue obviously won Maui, and they do give like every team a week off. Usually these next games don't happen for another 6 days, and it's usually a cupcake team. So Purdue took care of Texas Southern at home, but then did lose their Big Ten opener at Northwestern in that overtime game. You had Marquette, who came back, beat a cupcake, and then got blown out by Wisconsin in their first high major game after that. Now Kansas did beat UConn at home, coming back from it. Tennessee gave up 100 to North Carolina pretty shortly after, a week later. I mean, I guess you can kind of see a little bit. You had Syracuse got absolutely boat raced by that horrible Virginia offense, gave up 84 the week after Maui. And like you said, Brad's had his experiences. So I don't know. I can see why that just kind of throws off your whole, like, you're kind of a month into the season, starting to get that routine down, and then all of a sudden the huge time zone change, the 3 games in 3 days, and just the travel and everything. I could see how, like, the next couple weeks you're just kind of a little off as a team, and how maybe you wouldn't like that as a coach, but man, that event's just so great. It's just so great. And it's just everyone's watching it during Feast Week. Every college basketball fan, media member, everyone is dialed into that tournament. The exposure's off the charts. And it's just, you could tell that it's a super fun event, I'm sure, for anybody to be involved at. I mean, I know they had to move it this past year because of the awful situation there in Maui with the fires, but like the Civic Center, just the area. I know they do like a bunch of like off-court stuff. The Georgie dancing the night before in 2018, that was awesome. Like, it's just such a cool event. I'm sure anybody you said somebody here on the text line had been there. It just seems like such a blast for everybody involved to be at, and such a big stage. It's always on ESPN. Such great competition. Like, you're probably getting 3 quad 1 games usually, or at least 3 high major games. So I feel like the positives probably outweigh maybe you're not your freshest for that one Big Ten game in early December. Now, I know it's important. Every Big Ten game's important, but I feel like you recover pretty quick from that. Like the teams that were at Maui this year, like Purdue was there. They won Maui. They went to the national title game. Like, it's not going to affect your whole season going over there. Yeah. Maybe it gives you a week or two of not being quite as fresh, but I think if you get a chance to do it, if you get invited, there's no way you can pass it up.
I wouldn't think so. No, even if you are going to get Bill Walton on the call for a game or two, you know, that might. I mean, some would say it's a positive.
The night game that tips off at like 10:30 with Bill Walton just spewing nonsense for 2 hours, actually pretty fun, pretty entertaining.
It can, if you're in the right state of mind, you definitely can just have a good time with Walton on the call. Sometimes it could get maybe frustrating if you want a little bit more hard-hitting analysis.
That Illinois-Gonzaga game, I remember that in the 2018 Maui. I was, maybe a freshman in high school at that point. I can't remember where exactly I was. I think I was a freshman in high school. And it was like, it tipped off like 11 p.m. or something. And it's just Bill Walton on the call saying God knows what. And I'm like laying in my bed at like midnight watching Illinois try to come back against Gonzaga with Bill Walton. I was like, this is pretty fun.
It is pretty cool. If you do go back to 2012, that was even a quicker turnaround than what you would expect normally. Now, Illinois almost lost their next game. They needed a game-winning 3 by Tyler Griffey to beat Gardner-Webb. So they played Butler in the championship game on Wednesday, November 21st, and they had to turn around in Champaign and play on Sunday. The 25th, they won by 1 against Gardner-Webb.
All these teams from this past year, I don't think played until at minimum like 6 days later, so the next Tuesday, from what I've seen.
Yep. And see, this is different. Now, maybe it's we're talking something as far as a different challenge. If you go by the 2012 schedule, regardless of the timing of it, your next few games after the Maui was Gardner-Webb, Georgia Tech, Western Carolina, and then you played at Gonzaga. Now, Georgia Tech is probably flying under the radar. That's an ACC Big Ten Challenge game. If you get a different draw, and it's particularly on the road, if we're slotting in, you're at North Carolina, that would be a different task where you're a week removed from Maui, where you'd say something different. But you go to the 2018 year. I know that Brad felt that season. Number one, I mean, you were so young.
You were probably the worst team in that field other than Chaminade, right?
Yeah, probably. I mean, you were talented. You started a sophomore in Trent, a freshman in Io. You had a freshman in Georgie. You had Aaron Jordan. You had Kipper. Like, it was a year when you just weren't going to be very good. Now, that was part of the first signs of the turnaround. Like, you beat Michigan State at home, and that was a really good Spartan team. You rushed the floor. Io had his coming out party to people probably on the national scene. You win at Ohio State, but I know that Brad kind of felt like things snowballed. He couldn't really come up for air after Maui that year. They lost to Georgetown at home, 3 straight losses in Maui. They came back. They beat Mississippi Valley State, but then they had to quickly then go on the road for Notre Dame, on the road for an early Big Ten game at Nebraska, and then to play that game we talked about earlier, the last United Center game against Ohio State. And next thing you know, Illinois is 2-7. But kind of using those examples is kind of what I wanted to hit on, is that I feel like we've seen this with Tom Izzo. When you're so established and comfortable in your situation and who your team is, who your program is, you're not worried about making the NCAA tournament. You're really focused on just challenging your team throughout a season, and even maybe not even terribly concerned about what seed you end up being. Although always the counter to scheduling tough is that you can't really hurt yourself that much. Like, I don't think the committee's worried about how many quad 1 losses you potentially have. What I'm getting at is, like, Izzo has always said yes, it seems, in the non-con. Like, he's playing on a what do you call it, air hangar or whatever, an Air Force boat ship. He's playing on a ship out in the sea. He's playing a bunch of neutral and just high major games. And I'm not saying you want to be 100% a Tom Izzo clone in today's college basketball. I would argue against that, especially on the transfer portal. But I do think Brad could say yes to more. And I'm not saying he's not scheduling tough, because he is, but maybe say yes to Maui, even if you think there's a little bit of a downside, just because of the exposure, just because of the challenges that you would face there from your team standpoint, teams that you could maybe see again deep in the tournament, those type of things. And I think that Maui's a recruiting tool, in my opinion. If you're on that stage, everybody is watching that, and not that Illinois needs recognition, but it is maybe a different level of what you could get versus maybe the next tier of MTE or whatever you're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, that week everyone's watching Maui. It's like that's the one that everybody knows. You have Atlantis, you have the Emerald Coast Classic, some of these other ones, but Maui's the premier in-season event that everybody's tuned into. That's on national TV every single game. So I think, it's feeling like it's an invite like next year, assuming, especially when you look at what the roster could look like in a year from now, and you go there as one of the favorites in the event or one of the premier draws, like, I don't think you can pass that up, especially knowing the last time you went 0-3 with a young team. Now, in an era where we expect Illinois to be a ranked, nationally relevant team here going forward, like any of these next couple of years, you got a chance to go do some damage there. And as we saw this year, the winner of that tournament went to the national title game. Not saying that happens every year, but when you get a field like that and you pick up those types of wins, like after Maui this past year for Purdue, there's pretty much no way they were ever going to fall off the 1 line. Like, Maui itself was 1 seed worthy resume based on, now it's not that type of field every year, but the programs that are there are usually pretty darn good. And you're getting like 1 team from every major conference, and they're usually not Rutgers and Vanderbilt.
Right. This past year you had what? Purdue, Tennessee,
Kansas, Gonzaga, UCLA, Syracuse, Marquette. Chaminade, of course.
Unbelievable. I did want to shift gears a little bit here before we catch our break and get to Brad Underwood on the other side of this hour. But a 217 said Matt Norlander of CBS Sports said today or on his podcast that was released today, it's mentioned in the text, Coleman is more likely to transfer to Arkansas than stay in the draft.
Arkansas wants Coleman. I mean, I guess I could see that.
Yeah.
I said, like, one of these big-time programs, and now you got to consider Arkansas in that mix just because it's the first offseason with Cal and the Jerry Jones NIL money, but I could see that. I wouldn't blame Coleman at all. He'd probably get paid quite handsomely there.
Probably close to $1 million, right?
I would imagine. I think he would get to 7 figures with an Arkansas offer.
Man. And looking, it was funny, we've referenced it before, but Cal, of course, mentioned, I talked to the roster, there is no roster. Or talk to the team, there is no team type of thing.
He's got a team now.
I was pulling it up here, John L. Davis, Jonas Adu from Tennessee. Now they have Adu and Big Z. They've got Avicic there as two bigs. Maybe you play. Are those? Is Big Z a center? I mean, he's 7'2", but he's skilled. Like I don't know.
He's skilled enough to probably play some
4.
minutes at the 4. Now, probably wouldn't guard very well, but
yeah,
I mean, can't hurt to have that type of front court depth. I mean,
right.
I think Big Z. Probably a guy you don't necessarily need to play 30-plus minutes. He can be more of a 20-plus minute, play a few spots type of guy.
Sure. And maybe that's a sell to Coleman that, hey, we got the 5 spot locked down with Adu and Avicic, and you can come in and play the 4 for us. They got Boogie Fland on the perimeter. Carter Knox, a freshman, coming in as well. It's funny, and I don't know if I should even mention this, but our guy, Hans D., hit us up a week or so ago. It was shortly after Coleman went in the portal, and he's like, "Hey, I'm over here at the airport, and there's an Arkansas private jet." And I was like, I kind of jokingly was like, "Yeah, Cal's here to meet with Coleman."
In Champaign would be. See, if that happens,
wouldn't that be a bold move?
If Coach Cal just shows up at Willard Airport, gets off the plane to meet with Coleman, Brad Underwood needs to get in his car, drive over, and just let's go. Like Brad Underwood, John Calipari, face to face. Let's settle this now. You will not come to Champaign and recruit my player.
Yeah, that would be it'd be interesting, especially with the Antigua deciding to go to Illinois versus Arkansas and that whole kind of thing. Now, I'm not reporting that happened as far as the Coleman and Arkansas meeting or anything. Don't put that on Twitter. I don't need Coleman and me going back again round 3 or anything like this. But
round 3? There was a second round? I've only seen one.
Yeah, 2 years ago. This past year, I tweeted something about Coleman struggling to guard 5s, and he quote tweeted that and had something to say. I think I was right, but anyways,
I think you were too.
Anyway, it's all good. It's all good. Me and Coleman, I think, are cool.
I think you were right both times. The other one was the vibes are off.
Yeah, I was definitely right on that. And Coleman in the offseason said I was, not in so many words. But anyways, I will add this too. I know he's in there with a no contact designation. I do want to clear something up for some people that are probably. I mean, look, we're uncovering new leaves in the portal and just what the current state of college basketball in the offseason is. Like, obviously, we've changed from you can transfer once anywhere. Now you can transfer as many times as you want, as long as obviously you got to have the school be able to accept your transcripts and make it work academic-wise. You've got guys going in the portal normally. You got guys going in with a no-contact designation. As far as I understand it, no-contact designation just means you're not making your contact stuff available when you post your name and your info and stuff in the portal. And yeah, there is that message of don't contact. I don't know if there's necessarily a rule like, hey, you'll get a violation or a slap on the wrist if you contact a guy that's on a no contact list. Like it's a dead period and you're violating that. I've heard that there is still obviously contact between schools and players, even if a player goes in with a no contact. You got teams that are maybe on the outside or trying to just effort that and reach out to that guy. I think Coleman's talked to schools. Bottom line, I think Coleman's talked to people. I don't know how many, but I have heard that he's definitely had some preliminary conversations, preliminarily, if that's a word, gauging the market on what it would look like. I do think he has a feeling that he could get paid big time if he comes back to college. But yeah, like I was talking to somebody the other day, somebody who covers things on kind of a more of a national level, and I was like, hey, what are you hearing on this guy? And he's like, well, this is the only school that's asked me for his number yet. So like you got schools trying to make that thing happen. So even though Coleman's like going to go through the draft process, is in as a no contact, I wouldn't take the bait and say, oh, well, he's just not talking to anybody and is going in. He's going in with like blinders on to the draft without having any idea what's going on elsewhere in the portal or who would want him or how much he could get here and there and there. Like he wouldn't be doing his homework if he wasn't. So I think that is how things are going. I don't know how deeply he's diving into those type of things, but just because he has no contact doesn't mean that he's not being aware of what his surroundings are.
Yeah, it's basically just, if you don't have that tag, then anyone can just hit you up at any time. And if you do have that tag, then you're basically filtering like, nah, I'm not interested in these calls. Just give me the ones I care about.
You make it harder for teams to get a hold of you.
Yeah.
And if you are wide open, you're probably getting called by, if you're Coleman Hawkins, probably like 50 schools.
Right.
So anyways, we got to catch a break. Brad Underwood on the other side, he spoke to the media today about Tomislav Ivisic and Benjamin Rickhouse. Stay tuned for that. This is The Drive.
You're listening to WSJK ESPN 93.5 Tuscola, Champaign-Urbana, your home for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Remembrance event, but the White House not confirming reports about a hold on weapons shipments to Israel as some lawmakers press for more information.
Senators Joni Ernst and Ted Budd in a letter to the president yesterday asking which ammunition was withheld from Israel, why, if it was part of the recent national security supplemental passed by Congress, why Congress was not informed, and if the administration will commit to telling Congress about decisions like this in the future.
Fox's Jackie Heinrich at the White House, which says what Israel calls a limited operation in the southern Gaza city of Rafah is being watched closely. Meantime, the CIA director back in Cairo for more talks on a ceasefire and hostage deal. Thousands of passengers stuck in line at airports in the UK after what's reported as a computer issue in the system used to check passports. America is listening to Fox News.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
The U.S. Education Secretary lands back on the Capitol Hill Grill, facing more questions about the response to campus protests and foreign gifts to universities, but also problems with the student aid application.
One focus for the House Committee on Education and the Workforce was the botched rollout of the free application for federal student aid. Northern Mariana Islands Congressman Gregorio Sablan told Education Secretary Miguel Cardona potential college students in his district could only fill it out if they said they were foreign.
It's 100% in my district. No student can complete the FAFSA application. And I understand it's one of the items that, outstanding issues that needs to be resolved. I'm just asking you, could I please have your commitment that this will be resolved before the next school year?
Absolutely.
The committee chairwoman said for things including flourishing anti-Semitism on college campuses and steep learning loss in K-12 schools, Cardona gets a failing grade. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
The federal government is being sued by TikTok and its Chinese parent company ByteDance, trying to block a new law that requires selling the app to avoid a possible ban in the U.S. The lawsuit claims that violates the constitutional rights of users, including Americans' free speech rights. Restaurant chain Panera Bread is dumping its line of caffeinated caffeinated drinks called charged sips, which have led to lawsuits.
Two families of people who died after drinking the caffeinated lemonades have filed wrongful death suits against the company, while another person claims that the drink led to her heart problems. Panera has introduced a new line of drinks, including blueberry lavender lemonade and pomegranate hibiscus tea, among other beverages, as part of its continuing menu revamp. The new offerings will have low sugar and low caffeine options.
Fox's Hillary Barsky. A mixed finish on Wall Street. The Dow up about 32 points, the S&P up 7, but the NASDAQ slips about 17 points. I'm Lisa Brady. This is Fox News.
Hello again, everyone. Let's check weather for East Central Illinois. Champaign-Urbana vicinity. Showers and thunderstorms will be making their way across the area this morning, and some goodly downpours and perhaps a strong and severe storm that can't be ruled out both this morning and later this afternoon. In a few spots, high temperatures to about 79 to 80 degrees. There will be a number of rain-free hours here through the midday hours. The south-southwesterly winds take hold. Some peaks and pokes of sunshine as well. Overnight clearing tonight. We'll bottom out at 58 with a lingering shower chance this evening, especially east of Champaign County. For the day tomorrow, clouds build, warm, late morning and afternoon showers, thunderstorms over parts of the area, the high at about 81. Moving into cooler weather for Thursday, a couple of showers and 68, 66 at a partly cloudy, dry Friday. Pattern shift gets going over the weekend, more so for much of next week, and probably beyond from there. 67 with a couple of showers and thunderstorms late morning and afternoon on Saturday, dry Sunday at 70, into the 70s, and dry weather Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. For Stevie J, broadcasting at Beetrolchis, Greg Solgay.
It is The Drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Heath weighs in on the U of I Atlanta Link text line. News today on the college hoops front. Kadari Richmond has made a decision, the first teamer from the Big East. He's going from Seton Hall to St. John's, staying up there in the Northeast. Was highly speculated to be trending towards the Red Storm coming out of Seton Hall and going into the portal, and knowing that he's from Brooklyn, so to play for the hometown school. Rick Pitino, obviously the coach there, with, he's gotten some good excitement back in the Johnnies in terms of, I'm sure, their support regarding NIL, just their overall perception of a program. They almost made the tournament this past year, and they needed this one. Really, if you look at it from my point of view, where kind of joked about it earlier this week, they were immediately pointed to as the Cliff Amore front runner as soon as the big man from Rutgers went in the portal. And there was even some talk out there, I think my guy Trilly Donovan was kind of hinting at, like, they were the team that kind of pushed him into the portal, told maybe through back channels or whatever, kind of like, yeah, you should go in the portal and get a big payday and play for somewhere different than Rutgers, even though they are bringing in a couple of stud freshmen, but probably used up, based on my understanding, a lot of their NIL chest on Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. But anywho, St. John's did not follow through and land Cliff Amore. He goes to Alabama. And this was another one that they had at least smoke that pointed to them being the favorite. They do close the deal on this one, though, and that was a big guard wing target. I would have put him at the very top of the list if I was making it based on my personal preference. Now, you can go a couple of different ways regarding what you prefer in terms of talent, positional size, although both Kadari Richmond has that, Igor Demon has that. Would you rather have a projected lottery pick who's 18 years old? Would you rather have a proven first-teamer in a high major league who's older and playing in his final year of eligibility? Either one is probably the answer for a lot of people, and I definitely agree with that one too. But I think we did mention this, whether it was late last week or yesterday, that if I was ranking it, Kadari Richmond was at the very top of my list if I was Illinois, although it did seem, and you even said it, Kyle, like it was kind of shoot your shot, long shot type of recruitment. And even though I think obviously Orlando has connections in New York, that Illinois didn't get a visit, there wasn't a whole lot of buzz there. Just know that they were trying, and St. John's closed the door on that one today.
Yeah, the market is really starting to dry up of proven high major, whatever term you want to use. I got top scoring option type players.
Mm-hmm.
And Kadari goes to St. John's. So you look at this Illinois roster, you got 3 open scholarships now, or is it down to 2?
It's 3.
3.
Yep.
So you're probably adding 2 more guys. Now, one of those guys probably going to be a guy that you bring in for whatever reason to not really play. Because at the end of the day, you really have one more like rotational spot to sell, and then the other spot, you're probably going to keep one open. The other spot is probably, it's tough to sell a guy on, well, you'll play some spot minutes. It's probably, it might be a Moretti type of guy, or maybe, something of that mold in terms of a guy that doesn't really have expectations to play next year. So you kind of got one spot in the rotation left to fill, and you kind of need it to be a really good player. Like you don't have a top scoring option that has proven anything at the high major level, really. I mean, in terms of that level player, like Jerry White's proven he's a good high major player. Kylan Boswell's proven he's a good high major player. And Humrickhouse is obviously going to help a lot. Now he's making the transition from Evansville to the Big Ten. Point being, like, this swing that Illinois has to take for this kind of last spot, you'd imagine they want it to be pretty big, but is that still realistic for them with Richmond off the board? I know you got Wooga Poplar from Miami, who might be the top player left in the portal from a pure scoring standpoint. And then it really starts to get a little concerning, because I like what they've done for the most part, but you do kind of have that void. You don't have the Terrence Shannon or the Marcus Damask on this team to give the ball to and to trust as your primary go-to scoring option. And I feel like there's one thing that's going to hold this roster back. It's a lot of good players, but do they have the alpha type? I don't think they do, and I don't know if there's a ton of options left to fill it after Richmond comes off the board.
Yeah, and it's hard to make up for that when you don't have a star to be that consistent presence, the top guy that defenses are going to key in on, that you just can't stop. Like, I would assume it was that. Terrence Shannon Jr. was that. Not saying that teams that have more balance can't find success. We've seen examples of that, obviously, but I do think maybe you'll have inconsistencies from some other guys where it'd be great if you just – it was such a value for Illinois, like, hey, maybe it's not Marcus's night. And Marcus certainly was that guy at times when other guys weren't clicked in, or Quincy's been inconsistent. But, hey, Terrence is the best player on the floor, end of story. That's what ultimately decides the game. Now, you are never really going to probably get in this portal cycle a guy as dominant as Terrence Shannon. Like, it would be hard to do that because he had one of the best statistical seasons in Illinois history. But still, an alpha scorer, you got to – I'm with you. I think that the options are dwindling down. They're not nil at this point, but there is more urgency and a little bit of angst, I think, for people out there, that it would be, hey, I love what they've done. They've checked a lot of boxes. I think that these pieces fit, but is there a worry that they don't have that alpha type guy? I think that's fair at this point to say, until, of course, we'll see where things go from here. In terms of pivots, I know that maybe we can spend a little bit more time on this later this week to really dive in and go a deeper breakdown of each guy in particular. I know Chaz Lanier from North Florida is a guy they've been connected to, at least as far as contact.
Unbelievable shooter, right? 44%.
On 7.5 attempts per game. That's a high volume. 51% from the field, 44% from three, averaged 20 a game last year. 6'4", 200 pounds, native of Nashville, Tennessee, although a place not that far from there, Lexington, Kentucky, has been linked to him. Now, they've been linked also to Jackson Robinson from BYU. Can they get both those guys? I'd wonder about that. Jalen Wells is in the portal, the really good shooter from Washington State, although I was told that one's not a a focus for Illinois at this point. Wonder if he's trending in another direction. Cam Christie, if there wasn't, if you took away the fact that he would, let's say he was, now it would be too obvious. It's like, all right, he's a Mean Streets guy who is not having the last name of Christie. You'd be like, oh, Illinois, write it all over the board. He's the perfect guy. But with him and his brother, now Illinois kind of, I don't know, Max Christie, that one just seemed like they knew, both sides knew that it wasn't just going to work out. Cam Christie, Illinois kind of offered later, dabbled with that one, didn't really push. He goes to Minnesota. There's a kind of I don't know, there's some friction, I think, prolonging between Illinois and the Illinois Wolves AAU program. Long story short, I've had no expectation from the moment Cam Christie went in, even though you'd say, hey, in-state product who's played well in the Big Ten, that had a big-time game at State Farm Center and could slot in at the 2 guard, and if he takes another step, could really be an intriguing NBA prospect. Hey, a season in Champaign could make a lot of sense for him. I don't have any expectation that he's going to end up here. So, like you said, Wooga Poplar, as you scroll down the list, I mean, if Kentucky gets this guy from North Florida, if they get Lanier, can they get Jackson Robinson as well? Although he just literally played for Mark Pope, so maybe that's an open and shut type of case. DJ Wagner still hasn't announced where he's going to go, although he's thought to be, I know that 24/7 considers him a point guard, and the crystal balls are towards Arkansas. Maybe that's just a matter of time as far as that goes. So Igor Dimon,
Big Def's already calling him Three Gore.
Yeah. Igor Dimon, I think as of right now, the way I would tab, I think he's the surefire, clear, in my opinion, number 1 A target for Illinois right now at that final spot to be a real featured guy. Now, I don't know that an 18-year-old's coming in and being the ultimate alpha in your offense. I think he's a guy that you want the ball in his hands a lot because he can do so many different things. I don't think he'd put up the type of scoring numbers in year 1 that like Kadari Richmond would.
Right.
Now, Kadari Richmond, that's easy to say because Kadari Richmond on 24/7 is ranked as the number 1 player that entered the portal this entire cycle, like even above Omar Ballo, even above John L. Davis, AJ Storr. But I think some other guys that have been in college that are older, that are maybe more proven scorers. I think the best thing about Igor is he's a Swiss Army knife. He can do so many different things with his size and his ball handling and passing and all those type of things. So how that looks, I think that you got to figure out whether you can beat out a pro offer for him to stay there in Spain and play for Real Madrid for another year, and how that progresses from here. I think we'll have to see, but I think that's a very serious option for Illinois right now. And with Kadari off the board, I would say that just increases probably the urgency to try to see if you can get that thing done. And he'd be an awesome get. And Illinois would be so intriguing next year with a good amount of talent. And you slot him in there, and I'd say that's a tournament team and will be a heck of a lot of fun to watch and cover. But without him, and if you don't get some of these other names that I just mentioned, then you start to really wonder who's slotting in at that spot, or how you configuring the roster to make up for it.
Yeah, that's not to say that this current group can't mesh well together and just kind of be one of those balanced teams, or maybe you don't have a guy averaging 15, you have 4 guys averaging 12 to 13 or something like that. And maybe you're one of these teams like some of these Wisconsin teams of the past where they don't even have a first or second team all conference guy, but they got 2 third teamers and 3 honorable mentions or something. That could happen. I would just be skeptical heading into next season. If Illinois, let's say their last true like rotational spot goes to somebody who projects as a backup or something, I would be concerned that this roster just doesn't quite have that lead scoring punch needed, that true alpha type, and that I think there would be some struggles there. I'd probably get worried that it's more of a bubble team than a team that could truly, be at the top of the conference. I'd need that one more big piece, and I don't even know how great I would feel about Igor Demin being that as such a young guy coming over. We've seen that work. We've seen that fail before. But he would be, from a talent perspective, like as good as you could possibly do. The upside of what he could bring is massive. Talking about snagging a lottery pick, a projected lottery pick in like mid-May to round out your roster, I would take that all day. So let's get that NIL flowing and let's get Igor, or Three-Gore, as Big Def says. Is he a big shooter?
He's been in this past season a 34% three-point shooter.
I'll take that.
Serviceable at worst.
Take that with his playmaking ability, with his size, ball handling. Yeah, bring me in.
That'll
bring
play.
me Igor. Yeah,
that'll play.
I'll take that.
Yeah. You know what's funny, and we could turn this into a segment for a different day, but I'm just going to tease this and throw this out into the airspace real quick. If Illinois misses, kind of point guard-esque on this big guard wing alpha, they like point guard like last year, where they target that as maybe their biggest area of need and they don't fill it, but you still maybe have like $1 million worth of NIL that was earmarked for that position. Would you throw that to Coleman Hawkins and say, we need you? Or let's just play the biggest lineup anybody's ever seen and let's just make this thing happen? I don't know. Maybe that's a conversation for a different day. Obviously, we hope, and everybody out there is going to want to see, can Illinois get Igor? Can they get one of these other guys? Is there a name who texted a trainer that they're going in the portal and is going to pop up here in 10 days? Who knows? Who knows what the heck's going to happen? But I just had that thought come across my brain. I just wanted to say it out loud. Would that increase the incentive to try to? I said before, Illinois is not going to beg Coleman Hawkins to come back. If you missed on those guys, would you try to do that, even though you have answered in the front court? Maybe
he'd have to play the 3 if he came back, though.
I think Coleman would love that, how that sounds. But yeah I know. It's admittedly...
Or you just have to tell Gary Booth to get lost or something, which I don't know.
It's admittedly kind of a crazy idea, but, it's radio, and we sometimes toss back and forth ideas that come up on the fly. So, anywho... We'll hear from Brad Underwood coming up next. Before we do that, got to do a little work. Let me tell you about Busey. It is the week of college graduation for the U of I. I know that's coming up this weekend, so congrats to all those graduates from us here at The Drive, but also from Busey. They say your dedication is paid off, your college diploma is in hand, and as you enter the workforce, prepare for your financial future with Busey. Exercise some smart spending habits, think before making big purchases, and don't max out credit cards. Instead, focus on some of these tips from Busey: building an emergency fund, paying down debt, and saving for retirement. Create a budget with their complimentary resources and expert advice, including their Money Matters blog on Busey.com. You can also find financial calculators and financial assessments to help evaluate your options to your money questions. Their experts can also help a couple other things: outcome-based investing, retirement and estate planning, tax planning, and risk management. Let Busey put you on the path to success with customized solutions for your financial needs. Visit Busey.com or stop by one of their many convenient locations. Busey, member FDIC.
You've changed thousands of diapers, played hours of peekaboo and duck duck goose because you'd do anything for your kids. That's why it's so important to protect them with life insurance from State Farm. State Farm agent Kurt Lenschow will help make it easy and affordable to help you protect your family no matter what the future holds. Because for the people you do anything for, life insurance could mean everything. Call State Farm agent Kurt Lenschow in Champaign-Urbana today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
At Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery, we're flooring people with amazing service, great design advice, and unbeatable selection and the best prices in town. It's the perfect time to update your home with waterproof flooring, carpet, hardwood, tile, and more. Then complete your rooms by shopping our incredible selection of furniture and accessories. We also offer great financing options. Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery, we're flooring people.
Local, personal, trusted. Hi, this is Todd Durakan with First Federal Savings Bank of Champaign-Urbana, and we've been serving Champaign County since 1908. Our institution is safe, strong, and stable. We operate on a foundation of responsible and sound practices, and you can rest easy knowing we're your bank. Rated 5-star superior by Bauer Financial Inc., fast, friendly, and local, with local loan decisions and underwriting. If you're not already banking with us, give us a try, and we think you'll love it here. First Federal Savings Bank, 356bank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender, NMLS 435120.
At ABC Heating and Air, it's our promise to help you always be comfortable. Do you need rescued because you're burning hot? Do you need rescued because your air is shot? Call ABC Heating and Air at 352-5400 and let us rescue you from the heat. ABC Heating and Air, 352-5400. Can't you see you need to call me at ABC? Call ABC Heating and Air. That's ABC Heating and Air, 352-5400.
In an ever-changing real estate market, it is so important to work with experienced agents like Russ and Nick Taylor with the Taylor teams at Taylor Realty Associates. They have the knowledge and expertise to get your home sold for the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time. Trust the experience and success of Russ and Nick Taylor with the Taylor team at Taylor Realty Associates. Give them a call today at 217-355-0700 or visit them online at taylorboys.com. That's taylorboys.com.
Champaign County Fair is looking for queen contestants for the July 14th pageant in Kessler Hall. Young women between the ages of 16 and 21 who live in Champaign County and Little Miss contestants from 6 to 10 years old can hear details about the competition on May 21st. Learn more about what it takes to represent Champaign County by clicking on the application link at champaigncountyfair.cc. The Champaign County Fair welcomes Josh Turner July 26th.
Here's another home improvement insight from Kramer Siding and Window, a proud member of Prairie Home Alliance. A new front door can instantly upgrade the look of your home and make it more energy efficient. The Kramer Siding and Window team can also install French doors to your deck or patio, welcoming the outside in, or storm doors for an extra layer of protection against the elements. The estimate is free, financing is available, and the business is local. Schedule your beautiful new door today and save 25%. Call us, click on kramersiding.com, or visit the showroom in Champaign.
The average American throws away almost 5 pounds of trash per day, half which ends up in a landfill. At 2 Men and a Junk Truck, when we pick up your unwanted furniture, appliances, trash, and office equipment, we make it a priority to divert those items from your local landfill. 2 Men and a Junk Truck looking for partners that share our vision of environmental responsibility. If you and your organization can reuse, upcycle, recycle some of these items, we would love to work with you. Contact us at 2menandajuncktruck.com. We want to make room for what matters most.
As Tapman's Towing celebrates 50 years of serving Central Illinois, we're always seeking good people to serve our great customers. Our team of expert tow professionals would like to interview others with CDLs, previous tow experience, or a strong interest in serving others. If you enjoy serving people, love working in the outdoors, and looking for a career, not just a job, we should talk soon. Do you have a strong desire but lack the experience? We should still talk. Visit our career page at tapmanstowing.com.
Yeah, a couple of announcements. Obviously, a couple of guys with size. A couple of guys we're really excited about. Ben Humickhaus is a guy who's we have worked really hard through this process. Very excited about his package, what he brings to us. Extremely versatile. I think he's one of the elite shooters in the country. I think that the versatility, I think he could do everything from play the 5 to be able to do some of the things that we did with Marcus this year in post-ups. I think that he got incredible range. I think one thing that always translates, no matter what level you're at, is shooting. And he does that at an extremely high level. I think he's one of the outstanding shooters, will be one of the outstanding shooters that I've coached, and maybe the best that I've seen in my time here. So a terrific young man, a terrific student, cerebral, high IQ, and again, fit what we were setting out to accomplish in the portal, which is positional size and guys who can shoot it, especially along the front court spots. So really excited about the addition of him and the versatility, and I think has a chance to be just outstanding player for us. So and then Tomislav Ivisic, very excited about. Very excited I pronounced his name right. So, but a young man that in watching film, he fits 7'1", 240, 250 pounds. And he is a very skilled player. Can really step out and shoot it. An elite passer, a guy that gives us the ability to protect the rim. On the defensive side, can really handle the basketball as well at his size. He's left-handed. And then he has a tremendous amount of experience, playing on the world stage, playing in the Adriatic League, and has played against high-level guys. He's been extremely well coached. So again, a guy that opens the floor, can pull defenders away from the front of the rim. I'm just excited because I think he's going to be a very talented and gifted offensive player who's got great range, can really shoot it, and excited to add him to our lineup.
Among all the front court players you're bringing in, what kind of versatility does this give you schematically?
A lot. I think the one thing that Ben does, I think the one thing that Kerry gives us, those two are elite shooters, and they're both different. Ben is a guy that, again, has deep range. He shoots it well beyond the NBA arc. He's going to be a high clip guy, but yet I think he's a guy that can play booty ball. I think that again, when you can open the paint, when you can create matchups, I think you're talking about a front court that you can see three of them on the court together. Again, I like the versatility of that. It's a kind of a Minnesota Timberwolves type lineup with spacing, and they each give us a little bit something differently. On the defensive side, Kerry's an elite shot blocker. Ben is a guy that, is a positional guy that can guard multiple positions because he's got great feet. Tomislav's a guy that's proven rim protector, rebounder, and gives us something different as well at 7'1" and with his length. So, you got Merez, you've got Jason. Those guys are young. So I love the versatility up front of the front court.
Obviously, Orlando had a consistent noticing with Tomislav. Your process and you personally getting comfortable with him and acclimated, and kind of how you felt for his game.
Yeah, it was speed dating. It was a trip abroad. It was a lot of film. It was a really hard dive. Obviously, Orlando's connection with his twin brother. It was connection with the people that know him. Obviously factored into that, but it was obvious from the the basketball perspective, what a great fit he was, because it was what we were looking for, in the portal, and one additional piece, but a guy who could stretch it, and a guy who could give us a little physicality, a little more rim presence on the defensive side as well. So, O's factor was in it. There's a lot of film out there. They played USC last year in an exhibition. He had a great game against them, and you start seeing comparative, games and so on and so forth, and you see his ability. So, again, a guy that not many people know about in the States, but worldwide, he's a guy that's made a pretty good name for himself.
Brett, Coleman gave you advantages to stretch five. To have that again, what led you to want to prioritize that, or just that philosophy?
Well, we were number one in the country going into the UConn game offensively. I think it wasn't just Coleman. It was what we did with Marcus, what we did with we were able to do with Quincy. Stretching the floor. You had Kylan. At 6'2", 6'3", 225 pounds, big, strong, physical guard. You go get Ben. And you see his skill set and what he can do. You go get Trey, 6'7", and I love just creating those matchups. And for us, it was simplicity on the offensive side, but it was all about a matchup and creating those matchups. And I think that when you have front court players who can space, I love what Kerry can do. And we've set out to be very diligent in recruiting guys who can make baskets and who can really shoot the basketball and open that paint up. So we'll try to keep finding that versatility.
Zvonimir wasn't cleared till January last year at Kentucky. Do you have any sense of how the process is going to work for Thomas Love?
Differently. That's all I can add. There were different reasons for his. Through every university has different stuff, but outstanding student, and so I think there'll be some, different without diving into the academic world of somebody.
When Ben was in the portal a year ago, were you familiar with him? How odd is it in an NAIA kid?
No. Great job by Evansville for finding him, and I think those guys are out there. I think that's one of the, we saw one from Morehead State and kicked our tail, and so it makes it a little easier to, especially when they're a little older. It caught everybody's attention this year. I think Evansville got off to a 6-0, 7-0 start, and then you saw his impact on their team when he got hurt, and when he came back. But that's the beauty, I guess, of our new world, is you see guys that maybe you wouldn't before, and know about them. But boy, did we love what we saw.
We heard you talk about positional size a lot for a couple of years. How has that kind of taken precedence or factored into roster building, just in terms of what you guys are?
Number one factor, along with personality. And, we give our guys personality tests. We want to make sure, through this, use the word speed dating, he's probably tired of hearing me say that, but through this process, and, this year's portal is different than last year's portal. We're not going to have the multiple stages. We have the one deadline. We're not going to have the grad transfers. There's very few guys going to come out of the NBA deal and have that impact that we saw last year. This thing is changed, so you had to move earlier. It'll be different next year when you lose the COVID year. So it's every year changing philosophical difference, and we're going to dive back into 25s hard with recruits, with high school kids, so I just think there's changes coming all the time. I think knowing how we want to build it, what we want to do philosophically, has helped us a lot. Our staff has done an incredible job in terms of, hey, these are the guys we want. These are knowing we want positional size, knowing we want shooters, knowing we want the court open. I don't know if that means we're going to win games or not, but at least we know what we're comfortable with, and we're able to go out and recruit those guys.
10 scholarship players, and are there some skill sets or positions you'd still like to add to the roster?
Not much. I mean, we may add one more. I think you can have too many. I think it's an absolute disaster to have too many. I think there's challenges that come with that. I think availability is a really good thing to have, whether it be late, whether it be semester. You know, we would potentially look at one more, but beyond that, I don't foresee any more than that. Unless something freakish just happens.
Even with Orlando's connections and maybe watching all the film on Tomislav, just how important was that trip to maybe go see him? I mean, what did you learn in that part of the process to make this the fit?
Well, connections and relationships are, you know, the most vital piece of that, and those were relationships O had, not me. And so I'm the head coach, and we can make some of those connections with his people, and along the way, we hope to build something that lasts a lot longer than this year as well. And you know, the recruiting game is still, and the game of basketball is still about relationships. It's still about people and connectivity. And you know, O obviously had some connectivity, but it was very important for me to be able to do some of those same things.
How much of an asset was it to sell Marcus to Ben to have his success, then go back in the portal, guy from the same league, skilled forward? Like,
yeah, I mean, was there any better player in the portal that? I mean, I don't know. Maybe you want to throw Cam in there at UConn, and I mean, there's one or two, but the job that none of you guys talked about Marcus last year, the national people, they didn't even know who he was. So, you know, that's why, you know, all this ranking crap and all this stuff, sorry, mean zero, but to be able to have Marcus and to be able to see that success and to see his efficiency numbers rise through the roof as he takes a jump up, huge piece of recruiting material that we took great value in. And, you know, to see a player like Terrence Shannon go from 9 or 10 points a game his prior stop to 22 or 23, another big advantage. You know, Quincy had a great year. So our success in the portal has been well documented, and we sure use that. But I think it's also this style of play that's allowed to that, and putting those guys and trusting those guys and being honest with the guys in the portal, what we expect of them. And I think that's been a piece of the success as well.
When do you anticipate bringing all the guys to campus, and what's kind of the first step in molding this into a team?
Yeah, as quickly as possible. You know, you've got to, some guys will be in here for the Maymester, you know, others, it'll be June. You know, obviously, you know, the international admissions piece is a little longer and drawn out than, so we'll see. We hope, you know, that process happens quickly for Tomislav, but yeah, as soon as we can, we hope to have the group here.
Where are you defensively on this team, just as you formulate it? Where has that philosophy kind of been like?
Well, I think I think we had some deficiencies last year. We lose an elite defender in Terrence. You know, I think Kylan's elite. I think he's special. I'm so fired up about Draven. You saw my comfort with him as a freshman growing at the end of the season. Elite defender. I think that Ty Rogers has that ability to be an elite defender. I think our rim protection will be better. Carey is elite, and I think as we emphasize that, I think it has very, very promising future on that end. Again, I think Tomislav helps protect the rim. I think that positional size, shooting jump shots, impacts the team's abilities to make them. So, Trey is a guy that's been known as a guy who can really defend. So I think we're in a really, really good place there. That's the area where chemistry has to happen the most, and be a point of emphasis for sure.
Last year you were 5 power forwards. It looks more conventional. The Boswell with the big down low. Is it going to be much different in that regard? Is it more conventional?
No. It's just a guy who's a big guard who can post, and he's comfortable because he's played it. I think we're still the same. I think we tried to be that. I think you've got, don't be shocked if you see other guys with, playing in matchups. We're gonna try to keep creating matchups and matchup differences, and that means Kylan's a 40+% three-point shooter. That may mean spacing him some. That may mean Ben on the ball. It may mean Trey on the ball. It may, who knows? It may mean Kerry on the ball. I don't know. We've obviously got Ty, Draven, those guys as returners. So I still think it's about the positional size. It's about the matchup, and we're going to continue to hunt those things every chance we get.
How instrumental has Icon been in trying to put together your roster?
Sure. I mean, I think that there's, I think in today's world, when you're filling a roster, there's 3 ways you go about it, and continuity. That was an area last year that was important to us. I think age was another one. We had to identify that last year, and then the third one's talent. And last year, we had a couple of guys potentially coming back in our program that were pros, and we had to go enhance our roster with that. So, obviously Icon's ability to be part of that, and our staff's evaluation is something that's extremely important.
What impact does all these new faces have on scheduling, if anything, when it comes to the non-conference?
It's going to be harder than ever. I mean, I think we're putting together a great schedule, and a schedule that is as competitive as we are. We're trying to we're still trying to close one more elite game, but as long as I'm the head ball coach at Illinois, we're gonna play people. We're not gonna run from them, and until something changes in a different analytic or schematic. We've got KenPom, we've got the net, we've got all those things. We want to make sure that we position ourselves in our non-league to match the games we play in the Big Ten.
Follow up, because you had Spain last year to help build time together to compete. Is there something you can do like that without having to travel overseas?
Maybe. I think as that will potentially be stuff that'll be a little different in the fall, but you're not going to replicate that team building. But team building activities are going to be a big part of what we do.
Right, COVID certainly had an impact on rosters here. How are you approaching continuity in multi-years? Are you looking at this as like all one-year rosters? How are you approaching it going forward?
So it's a little different because I'm not worried about guys transferring. Am I worried about continuity? Absolutely. I think that's where we have to understand, and I guess the general public needs to understand, is that the portal's changed a lot from year to year because the rules have changed, and the timing has changed, and the calendar's changed. This year's not like last year. Next year's not going to be like this year because of the COVID year being done, and everybody having 23, 24-year-old guys. We're not going to have that. We're going to have 20% less people available in the portal as grad transfers next year. So I think we're having to evolve on a year-to-year basis, and there's so much unknown in that. And really, it's very stressful as a coach. It's very stressful as because we don't know. But absolutely, I think we're going to find a trend back to freshmen. I think that doesn't prevent them from transferring, so I can't worry about that. But what I can do is try to get the best fits possible through the personality tests we're doing, through the style of play, through the emphasis of what are important in our values, to keep that. So that's a really hard question to answer because the rules have changed on us literally every year, and so it's very much you've got to think ahead, you got to stay ahead, because there's not going to be, I wouldn't want to be in a situation where I got a bunch of scholarships late this year. There's just nobody to go get.
Jeff had a really good tie to Kylan and his family. I think he was the lead on Ben as well. Just what have you seen from him and being able to have those connections and pay off here this offseason?
Jeff's a stud. I mean, he's an absolute, rock star when it comes to the recruiting game. And, sometimes it goes in cycles with coaches and recruiting guys and this and that. And we've got a great staff. It comes from connections. It comes from relationships, and the Kylan situation, paid off because of all the work that he has done and past recruiting experiences. So you try to keep all relationships on a good note, and even when you don't get them. And in today's world, that's paid off for us pretty well.
Does your bank keep rewards just out of reach? Hi, this is Ryan Heiser, President and CEO of Fisher National Bank. While some banks save their reward programs for a select few, here at Fisher National, we offer free rewards checking to all of our customers. We are trying to reward you for the things you do every day. Simply make 12 debit card purchases, receive a statement electronically, and have at least one direct deposit in a monthly cycle. It's as easy as that. Rewards checking includes excellent 2.0 annual percentage yield for balances up to $20,000 and ATM refunds up to $20. Oh, and no minimum balance is required. Free rewards checking from Fisher National Bank. Rewards within reach and service beyond. See monthly requirements at fishernational.com or stop by one of our branches today. Our team looks forward to serving you.
Fisher National Bank. Exceptional communities, exceptional people. Member FDIC.
Think you have to settle for mediocre car insurance to save money? Think again. It's possible to get superior coverage and still save money with Erie Insurance. Customers who switched to Erie saved up to $951. It pays to compare. Switch and save with Erie.
Your Erie agent in Champaign is Thomas & Ellers Insurance.
Annual savings based on new customers surveyed in March 2022 who reported savings when switching auto insurance. Individual premiums and savings will vary.
Your lawn is an important investment. Let Spring Green take care of that lawn. Your local, family-owned and operated Spring Green has been committed to beautifying your neighborhood through quality, service, and professionalism. Spring Green's full program customers are backed by their guarantee of satisfaction. Smart Money Magazine reports that consumers value a home with a well-maintained lawn and landscape up to 11.3% higher than the base price. Why don't you call Spring Green today, 359-2111, or visit them at spring-green.com.
You have money laying all around your house. You just don't know it. And no, I don't mean selling your great-grandma's good china. I mean all the old metal items you don't want to use or get rid of. Don't pay someone to haul it away. Bring it into Max Twin City Recycling and get paid to have it taken off your hands. They love new customers and are more than willing to walk you through their process step by step. Come check them out at 2808 North Lincoln Avenue in Urbana.
Starting it over is what we do at Max Twin City Recycling.
Kelsey Furniture in downtown Tuscola sells Tempur-Pedic beds. What's it like?
I'm going to tell you right now, Stevie, that thing is the best thing I've ever slept on in my life. My wife and I both have said we've never had better night's sleep. And the people at Kelsey's were fantastic. Brian is the guy that helped us. You know, as much as I did my research, he has a world of knowledge about beds themselves. Oh, man, it's like sleeping on a cloud, man.
Kelsey Furniture, downtown Tuscola.
BMW, Buick, GMC, Honda, and Subaru. Welcome to Sarah Champagne. We can handle all your car repairs on site, including paintless dent repair, bumpers, windshields, everything in between. We have an amazing selection of new or pre-owned vehicles to choose from. Shop from home and buy online or reserve your vehicle before it hits our website or dealership. Sarah Champagne is home of the Sarah One Price Promise, delivering an honest and transparent buying experience. Hurry in or shop online at sarahchampagne.com.
Good to hear from Brad Underwood there, talking in the offseason about Humrickaus, Savicic. I asked him, obviously, about the sell of Marcus Domask to use for Humrickaus, and Brad said it right. They have a really, really good transfer reputation of getting the most out of guys in the portal, and hopefully that continues this year with a number of different options. And maybe, as Kyle and I were talking off the air, you'll, with Savicic, maybe start to get an international profile. You go every year and get an international guy. You get
Give me a pipeline every offseason. You're always probably going to have like 3 transfer spots. I'd take, well, I guess the international guys aren't necessarily transfers.
Right.
They're just signing. But just for the sake of the argument, I'll take one international guy every year, one intriguing international prospect, one Missouri Valley guy that has the Domask, Humrickaus type of skill set, and then one guy who hit the portal like Kylan Boswell, who you finished second in the recruiting, and he's in the portal for 2 days. Just, we'll take you. Yeah, I'll take that. Just start lining those 3 things up every offseason. I think you could attract some talent.
I like it. I think those are good angles to shoot for sure. We did have a text before we get out of here from Big Def on the U of I Line Link text line. Said, looks like Jeff Alexander's here to work some recruiting magic, but do you know what his role will be with Biggs now that OA is back? Fully expect and know that Antigua is going to be the big man coach once again. I think that Jeff will probably slot in as a coach on the wing with TA probably handling a lot of the guard duties. And I think that these things are fairly interchangeable. Now, obviously, with Orlando being a former big man that and as having worked with the guys that he's worked with, I'd want him as the guy specializing with bigs. But I think that I'm not going to say people would be surprised of how versatile some of these coaches are in terms of how comfortable they would be working drills with wings and trying to watch film with them and having knowledge on how to get the most out of those positions versus maybe one that they've spent a long time at. But obviously, Jeff Alexander's probably no more, maybe an inch taller than me. I mean, he's 6'4". In his playing days, he's not playing in the front court. He's probably playing at guard or on the wing. So as a player, I'm sure he knows enough about that in terms of just bouncing around. But again, like, even though Jeff was the big man coach after O left, prior to that, he was in a support staff role, but kind of floating into whatever they needed out of him. And I think it will be pretty easy for him to work with wings if that's the decision they're going to make, and have TA work with guards. But TA's worked with anybody. I mean, he's part of it is he's a skills development coach and did that for a long time. I mean, he's worked with anywhere from Anthony Davis to Derrick Rose and people in between. So you got that type of thing. But I wouldn't worry too much, kind of bottom line, about the positioning and specialization. Although, to answer your question, Big Def, I know that OA will be back with the bigs.
Yeah, the bottom line is it's a really, really good staff. Really, really good.
It is.
On a lot of fronts, coaching, recruiting, and it's pretty loaded. Pretty loaded there. Things will get done with this coaching staff, that's for sure.
I agree. And you heard there as you were listening to Brad, I asked him about Jeff and with his connection to Kylan and that family, with his he was the lead on Ben Humrickaus, and he's the lead on Igor Demon as well. So Jeff has the potential. He's already made some splashes here in this offseason cycle. And I wanted to ask Brad about that because admittedly, like usually when we talked about the lead recruiters on Illinois' roster building efforts, Tim Anderson's gotten a lot of guys as the lead. And not to say I think sometimes I always want to circle it back and say, hey, a lot of times these are group efforts that, yes, there is somebody with the initial in. Yes, there is somebody that is the main face of a certain recruitment, but other guys are contributing and working it together. But I do think this has been a window where Jeff has shown that he has very capable recruiting chops. And man, if his work that he's done overseas on the Igor front pays off, then that would be a huge feather